Okay. Welcome, welcome. Really excited to be here with Jennifer. This is our first study group together and very happy about that. And what we're going to do is start off with our usual introduction of the safety energy locks that we're going to be working with today. And then also showing you just reviewing of the books that we're using in that process. So I'm going to get onto screen share right now. And okay, are we good? Everybody see it?
I don't see anything as of yet, which is shocking because we just did this 2 minutes ago.
Okay, so let me try again. Oh, I always forget to hit that second.
There you go. Okay, now we're good.
Okay, let me get that. Okay. All right. Yay. Okay, so we start off looking at these books. They're the self-help Jinshin Jitsu books, and these were written by Mary Burmeister, who was the woman that brought this art to the US from Japan. And so the books have amazing information. They're simply difficult and complicated, but they're so easy at the same time. So it's something that Adele Lees had ended up just poring over and trying to figure out a way that we could have this information that's for people and add it to animals. And that's how she wrote this book, Jinshin Jitsu for Your Animal Companions. And so both of those, I have the websites written up there for you. If you're interested in purchasing the books, you can certainly jump on those websites and check it out. And then there's always great information, more than just the books for sale too. So we're going to visit today with Safety Energy Lock 11 and Safety Energy Lock 23. And so the first one, Safety Energy Lock 11, it helps the shoulders and the neck stress and tension. The Safety Energy Lock is right over your shoulder. So if you're hooking your hand over your shoulder near your neck, you've hit Safety Energy Lock 11. And the meaning of this Safety Energy Lock is letting go of excess baggage. And what that does is it affects your whole body. I mean, you think about your shoulders and how they deal with your balance of yourself, and how they keep you from holding on to a lot of things, right? And so, for example, like walking. If you're walking, I have this issue where you're walking and my shoulders end up going more faster than my legs are going. And so I'm leaning forward. And so what does that do? That creates my balance to be pulling on my back, making my sciatic going, making my neck more tense because I'm trying to hold everything up. And so when I walk completely straight and not with those shoulders trying to push me forward, it's like this ease, this amazing ease and balance that that puts you back into place. And so the shoulders really have a lot of the balance in your system. It works on your feet, everything. And so you notice when people are talk about like their shoulders are up to their ears, that's because you ended up with too much to deal with. And so putting your hand on that Safety Energy Lock 11 and holding it brings the energy down. It ascends up the back and goes down the front and just lets go. We often hear people talk about carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. And so that's the same thing. And how ironic that people, humans, have shoulders that are horizontal, where most animals have vertical shoulders. And so they can slough things off a lot faster and easier than we can. They are in the present more. And we have a tendency to hang on to things because our shoulders are so perfectly there for it. So So these are things that safety energy lock 11 help you with. They help with the I was just totally spaced out about what I was going to say. So that's okay. Let's just go ahead and go on to safety energy lock 23. And safety energy lock 23 is known as the controller of my destiny. And it helps to harmonize fear, and perfectly located. It's right where the kidneys are, right in the back, along the either side of your spine, at the end of the rib cage is where safety energy lock 23 is. And it's perfect that the kidneys are there, because the kidneys also are an indicator with fear. I mean, just anybody can probably know when you have the police car coming behind you and flashing its lights, the first thing I need to do is pee. Because I'm so scared of what's going on. So it's just another reaction to that fear. And because safety energy lock 23 is located at the waistline, it helps with how you look at things, or how you digest the world and thoughts or feelings. And so by combining safety energy lock 23, that helps harmonize fear, and safety energy lock 11 is helping letting go, you can see where that could be a perfect combination for trauma. And so what we're going to do now is, whenever you're working with an animal, but even more specifically when you're working with an animal who's suffered some trauma, you need to make sure that you're centered and that you're grounded before you're able to go and work on this animal. And so by doing that, we are going to experience safety energy lock 11 and 23 on ourselves, and do that on each side of our body for 9 breaths, so that you can feel a little bit of what the dog is going through now, or animal. And so one of the things I forgot to mention on my screen share was that safety energy lock 23 is on the back. You get the right 23 is on your right side, the left one's on your left side. But for some people, that is uncomfortable to actually sit like this. And so for those who have that, there's a finger facilitator, a finger alternative, and that's your baby finger. So you can hold safety energy lock 11, which is over your shoulder. And then you can use the finger facilitator, putting your thumb over the baby fingernail. All right. So I'm going to do safety energy lock 23 and 11, and I'm going to hold that for the count of 9 breaths. And then I will prompt you guys to move over to the other side. So as you start relaxing into these safety energy locks, I want you to think about dropping your shoulder, taking a deep breath and letting go of everything. Thinking about finding that sweet spot where your head can just relax comfortably and not put any tension on your neck. Try to feel your feet touching the ground. And you're going to breathe up the back, over the head, and down the front. All right, and you switch to the opposite side, opposite 11. And either the baby finger or safety energy lock 23 on the back, bottom of the rib cage. Letting go of excess baggage. Control of your destiny. And as you're doing this, I'm going to read this wonderful quote I have as you're breathing your breaths. I found that on this book called The Main Central, and it's Lynn Kluber, who is actually speaking about safety energy lock 23. And she says 23 will help to develop tolerance. And she said that she found this quote in a book and it was anonymous, and she felt that it was perfect for safety energy lock 23. And so I'm going to read this quote. It says, "The most lovable quality any human being can possess is tolerance. It's the vision that enables one to see things from another's point of view. It is the generosity that concedes to others the right to their own opinions and their own peculiarities. It is the bigness that enables us to let people be happy in their own way instead of our way." And I think that's really profound for the animals too, to just, a lot of times we have more of an agenda for them than they do. And so to let go and just be with them and not try to fix them is how Jinshin works. It doesn't work when you try too hard. Believe me, I know. So let go of what your expectation is and allow them to be the path that they are. All right, when you feel like you're ready to come back and visit with us, we're ready to move on to Jennifer. And I thank you so much for everybody coming. It was really sweet, and I'll see you in a little bit. I'm going to put you on speaker, Jennifer.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Wow. I'm telling you, I love that hold. I love that hold. And it was one of the reasons why I wanted to share this with you, and why Cary and I talked about this tonight, because, you know, trauma is something that we're talking about in all realms right now, with animals and with people, with children, all different ages. It's just gotten my attention so much. And I did 10 years of working at a university healthcare system, and I worked with a lot of people with a lot of trauma. And I started to use this hold, which I learned from Philomena Dooley. If you're somebody who's not involved with Jinshin Jitsu, you have no idea who that is, that's okay. She's one of our instructors. She was also a nurse. She guided me a lot with some really, really unusual cases that I worked with in the hospital. And this was one of the holds she had me do for detoxifying the body. At the time, I was helping people detox from heroin and OxyContin and morphine and all kinds of things. But what I found as I started doing this was what it was also helping people rid themselves of and help move through was old trauma stuck in the body. So in a way, I think of this as a trauma detoxifier, kind of a big thing to say. So trauma is defined by Gabor Mate, who Robin's probably heard of. He's from Canada, who's a physician involved with trauma. He says it's a psychic wound that hardens a being psychologically and it interferes with their ability to grow and develop. So it's not what happened to you, it's what happens inside of you as a result of what happened to you. And it's different for everyone, and it's different for every animal. Sometimes I say, one person or one animal's trauma is another animal's no big deal. So it's an emotional response and it's a physical response to an event or a series of events. And we see this a lot in our animals that we have taken on and cared for who have come from abuse and neglect, or have been, you've adopted them. So these responses can be unpredictable, they can be or predictable, they can be flashbacks, there are physical symptoms, all kinds of things. In animals, there are things like obsessive barking, food guarding, wanting to stay with the owner or being afraid of people, shaking, running out the door anytime it's open, even though they've got this, oh my God, golden palace of a home to live in. And sometimes dislike of particular people based on what they look like and their build. It's triggering them. It's taking them back to that moment. So we can do something with Jin Shinjitsu to help them. So I am going to share my screen for just a moment and show you just a slide. And we've seen this on a human. So we just want to take a look at this for animals. So this is the hold I like to use for trauma for animals, dog, cat, horses, any kind of animal. One of the reasons why I like this hold, it's holding the energy lock 11, which we did on ourselves. And it's also holding 23, or if you don't know the numbers, don't worry, you don't need to know them. So it's kind of at the shoulder and then by the spine on the same side of the body where the rib cage rolls up and meets the spine. And with a dog, cat, or horse, you can sort of feel that. And in these drawings, you can sort of feel where that is. Don't forget, these energetic centers are the size of the animal's palm. So it's going to be pretty hard for you to miss on a dog or a cat. And then on an animal like a horse, they're going to be large. So on a small animal, your hand's going to cover. On a large animal, you may even feel them. So shoulder at the base of the neck, and then back where the rib cage meets the spine. I like this because we're only working on one side of the animal. An animal that's had trauma oftentimes doesn't like us to come in on both sides or cross over the top. They feel like you're going to try to contain them. And so that could make them exhibit a trauma response. I think Cary also said that when we start to work with an animal from a shelter or an animal we know has had trauma, don't jump right in. If you can give them the opportunity to come to you first, or if you can do a little self-help for yourself, but while you're waiting for them, holding your fingers and breathing, it's so important that you are calm and centered when you're with them. So we are helping an animal unload their burdens, open up to their destiny, detoxifying what has happened to them in their past. And I'm telling you, this is so, so powerful with all these animals. And they may be seated or lying down, just move with them. You might even notice that they kind of move so that your hand goes up higher, up towards their neck. And that's another hold that actually is part of a hold that we use for fear. But there's a difference between fear and trauma. That's long and lengthy, but they go together. So let them move together. So I do this on the right side. That's really the main things about it. Let me show you on a horse, where you're going to find this on a horse. It's similar. Now, oftentimes with an animal, I'll use this if they're changing occupations. Like for horses, yes, it could be trauma from being a rescue, but also I use this with racehorses coming off the racetrack that are now moving into, they're going to be retrained, rehomed. It may not necessarily be trauma, but they're moving into a new destiny. So it's important for them. And then a story of using this with an animal that had had trauma is I worked with a greyhound. So this greyhound had been a racing greyhound, and its owners loved this dog. The dog was very passive, really was quiet, only wanted to be in its bed. It ate, it did everything they wanted it to, but they asked me to work with this animal. So one of the first things I did was this trauma hold. And the dog just relaxed and released and stretched and let go. And then the interesting thing is, about a week later, they called me and said, could you work on my dog again? Suddenly it has an opinion. It changed its mind as to what and when it wanted to eat. It started moving around the house. It wanted to play. So what does that tell you? Because I know a lot of people talk about greyhounds as being very docile. They basically, in my opinion, they've disassociated in some kind of way. They have become so passive. And also oftentimes animals are caged, and so they don't know how to behave. So this can help also, say if you're working with a female who's been part of that pet breeding program, where and they weren't treated well. So, any kind of animal that's had to live a certain type of lifestyle that's not necessarily natural to them, I found that this can be helpful. So, I had to explain to the people with the greyhound that their dog was starting to become who they really were. And that's a beautiful thing. So sometimes the takeaway is that we're not in Jinjitsu helping your animal become what you think they should be. We are helping them open to who they really are. And in working together, building that connection between the two of you. So by doing this, helping your animals, sparking the energy, you're building a deep connection between the two of you. There's many more things you can do for animals to make them feel safe and secure. This one, I think, is a wonderful starting point, and we'll probably have other study groups where we can talk about even more of these. So Cary, we have a little extra time, and I'm going to stop sharing this.
Yeah, I think that we should open it up and see if anybody has any stories. Of course, I always like to tell a story, but I'm gonna sit on my hands and keep my mouth shut and see if anybody else. I'm gonna put you on gallery and see if anybody wants to raise their hand or just pipe in with a story of some kind of fear or trauma. Okay, I'm going in.
Oh, Colleen Perry has her hand raised.
All right, Colleen, do it.
Thanks, Cary. Thanks, Jennifer. It's not so much of a story as a question or some advice. How would I do the safety holds on a cat who doesn't really like to just sit still and let me do the safety holds?
Right. Really good question. And the cats are always a question because they are more opinionated, and they're not as people pleasing as a dog is. So one of the things I would suggest is sit near them, do the hold on yourself. Do it on yourself.
Okay.
Just breathe and do it on yourself, because you're going to connect with them that way. And then the other way is just, rather than saying like, okay, today's the day, this is the hour, we're going to do this. If you find a time when your cat is close to you and with you, you can also work ever so slightly off body. Or you can start by petting, kind of like a grooming motion, and slowing your hand down. We have to try different ways with the cats to see what they're going to acclimate to. And, just try some of these different ways and see what works for them. So that's 3 different things. Work on yourself, work slightly off body, and starting by petting at a time when you maybe would be kind of petting and just enjoying being cuddled up with them.
Okay, so it's less important to really do a pressure point as it is to just sort of connect with them in that area, whether.
Exactly. Because remember, those areas for a cat is the size of the paw. Your hand is much bigger. If you just hover near it, above it, you're going to make the connection. And I find sometimes I can even feel the energetic pulsation in my fingers. That may come in time for you. And you can tell just by watching their reaction, seeing if their ears are turning towards you or back towards your hand. You know, you can get some indications, and they may stretch and yawn. Those are all going to be little tips. And if they don't want it, they're going to jump up and walk away, and you know that's not what they need. Or as I say, no for now.
No for now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cats
The
say
other
that a
thing,
lot.
Colleen, that you can try also is to just use one hand. Don't try both hands. And just have the one hand, you might be petting them and your hand just stays there. And then that's helpful too. If it's just on safety energy like 11 or 23 or whatever one your hand stops at is just great. But that often for animals that are a little bit more leery, the one hand works better than two hands. And then also I've had a friend that, you know, I've been talking to her about Jinshin and constantly doing different helping her understand it. And she's been trying to do it with her pet, her dog. And it wasn't until the dog just jumped up on her lap accidentally and her hands just fell there that it worked for her. And so it's that trying too hard thing that sometimes it's like, I'm going to do this today. And it's like Jennifer was saying, it doesn't work that way. It's more of an accidental perfection.
I can fall prey to that trying too hard thing. So thank you for that reminder.
Oh yeah. Yeah, can't we all? And with some animals too, it can become sort of a part of a daily routine. Now, I don't know if cats will fall into that mode that they always know, okay, at 8 o'clock, we're watching this show and I'm coming to cuddle up with you. That's a perfect time. You know, you can find times in your day when they tend to want to be with you.
Sure.
That's always a good time too.
Great. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Any other questions or stories or anything?
Can I add to that?
Sure.
One of my favorite recounts of Mary, and for me, one of the most liberating ones, is of her in between sessions at the office, moving from the bathroom where she would wash her hands after the previous session and walking down the hallway to her next session. She would just really quickly as this, go through the main central and just touching on each of the safety energy locks as a quickie. And kind of like dominoes, you touch the first one and it gets the whole line of energy moving. And sometimes that's all a cat will give you. But it is a cumulative practice, so every little bit does count.
Thank you, Tate. And Tate is also a faculty member here with the Jinshin Jitsu for Animals. And so living in Hawaii in the warmer climate, lucky boy. And so thanks for that feedback.
Yeah, thanks for that, Tate. That's something I actually myself needed to hear. I hadn't thought about that. You know, I've always heard of that kind of tea and toast, we call it sometimes, but I've never heard it explained with that story about Mary. So that's a great one. Thank you. Anybody else? Anything else before we close? Okay.
Kate had her hand up.
Mardell. And
PK, you're muted.
Hey, Pat, go ahead and unmute yourself. Pat's my neighbor and I take care of her cats. Up, can't find it. Okay.
all right, let's get Mardell in. She had her hand raised also. Mardell, if you want to, and then we'll see if Pat can unmute herself.
So my dog Sadie has gotten to where she's afraid of thunder and fireworks and stuff. and I'll do just the centering hold, the 10 and 13, and then I'll do the stomach flow. But I like this idea of releasing the trauma, because I mean, the past, she didn't used to be scared of those things, but somehow developed it. So it's kind of interesting that, I mean, I'm going to try this too. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, Pat.
Okay, Pat.
Okay. I think it's working now.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, I have 2 cats. Jennifer knows my cats, and they're very different. And they had some trauma because they were abandoned on the street. But Trouble was never really keen about being held anyway. But lately, she goes through periods where she's friendly and wants to sit on your lap, and other periods where she doesn't. And lately, what I've been doing is when she sits on my lap, I just put my hand down on my lap, and she gravitates towards it. And then I can hold her on top, and we've used that hold before, and she likes it, which is surprising because she doesn't usually respond at all. So it has changed her personality a little bit.
Wow, I love hearing this, Pat. And that's such a good takeaway too. Sometimes we'll put our hands somewhere nearby and they will move themselves to where they make that choice. That's a really great takeaway. Hey, and Philip made a little comment in the chat about where we had on the drawings that I put up, that the energy lock 11 seems very close to another safety energy lock. It's called number 3. It's near the shoulder blade. And he's absolutely right. On dogs and cats especially, these energy locks, since contained very close together. So you don't need to worry about differentiating to make sure that you miss one to touch the other. You may get both, and that's perfectly okay. So Philip, you were right on. You were absolutely right. They're really close together. And so it's kind of hard to miss them. And also it makes it so it's really hard in a drawing like that to actually feel like you've got it exactly right. So just know that. Can't make a mistake. Well, you all, if there's anybody else who has a quick question.
If I may just make a short comment, I was listening in on Kelly Mount's what is it called, the study group.
Yes.
And she said something really poignant, which I liked. She said, the only way to do Jitsu wrong is not to do it.
Absolutely.
Absolutely true. Yeah. And, there's always that story that people have been studying, talk about Mary Burmeister, the one who brought this to the US, was very concerned about touching people. She thought it was so powerful. She thought she might hurt someone. And that was part of that. You can't hurt someone. The only thing you can do is not do it. So, we just need to jump in there, give it a try, see what happens, and report back. It's so fun. We love, so if you guys go on the YouTube, and I just posted it again, and you rewatch this, or please go on and let us know if you tried this and what you noticed. We would love to hear it. And that would be a great place to give us some feedback. And also post anything about what else you might like us to discuss that could be helpful for you. So thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. I love